So I'm just gonna show how I make these fitted masks. I have the pattern, and this one's just a little bit shorter. This is what the interfacing is done. I've already sewn this one together, and I've actually found that it's easier to sew the interfacing on one side and do it this way because it makes it a little bit easier later on. So I'll explain why then. So basically, I just do a 1/4 inch seam. Along the curved side, and then I take, so this is the lining, this is the one that's going on the inside. I basically just take it, flip it, and then this one, because this interfacing is on one side, when I flip it to the other side and open it up, so we want this one wrong side out, it actually helps keep that seam to one side. So it makes it just a little bit easier. I actually figured that out by making a mistake one time, and that made it easier. So I always keep the one that's going to be on the outside. So this is a periodic table. I keep that one on the outside as much as possible because it's going to fit on the outside. And so that's where I want it. So take this, match up the seams on the top. The top seam is going to the right, so I'm going to push this one down to the left. Pin it. And then basically by just kind of pushing it in against there, make sure that it fills in and that it's lined up. Because the one is on the outside and it's curved, the other one doesn't fit perfectly inside of it. So sometimes you'll get a little bit of excess over the edge, and that's okay, just trim it. But you want to get it in there as snugly as possible. And again, seams going this way on this side, so on the inside I'm gonna push it the opposite direction just to give it a little bit less bulk when we stitch over the top. Once I've done that, I'm going to smooth these out and make sure I don't have wrinkles in here. Pin that down. And then the next step is to sew along this and along the top. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I don't worry about back stitching on this because I'm going to sew over it later anyways. And I followed the inner line instead of this overlap because that's what it's going to be. So since it doesn't line off perfectly, I'm going to follow the patterned fabric. Again, just a 1/4 inch seam on that. So I always check to make sure that I got everything. And then I'm going to trim right here down along the bottom edge so that when I turn it right side out, it doesn't have issues. This one's a little frayed. I'm not sure why, so I'm going to trim that just a little bit. And trim up here at the top so that when we flip that inside out, it's comfortable on the nose. All right, unpin that. And then between the two, I'm gonna flip these out right side out.
The chicken food container got... Oh.
So once I've got it right side out, again, I just kind of run my finger along the inside to kind of get that lined up. And make sure that's all the way out. And then I'm gonna run a seam along the top, and I'm just gonna do it just barely in from the edge because this is a top stitch. And you can do matching thread. I am being lazy. I either use white or black. So, and I'm using an adjustable foot that has a little guide on the side. Just makes it so I can keep it more consistent. Because I suck at stitching straight. Sorry, my fabric got caught underneath. And here you have to guide it a little bit, at least my machine does, because there's so many layers right there in the middle that get stuck. And here we want to go all the way to the edge because we're going to be folding these over. And again, I'm not back stitching on this because those edges are going to be covered anyway. So like that. See there, all the way to the edge. Now, the next step on this, it bothers me when this part comes separated and touches your face. So I actually top stitch this center as well. And if you want to manage to line it all up, you can pin it and line up when you stick the pin through. Make sure that you've got the seam lined up, and you can do it that way. Sometimes I eyeball it, sometimes I pin it. It depends what I'm feeling like. Right now, I'm gonna eyeball it. And I usually do the top stitch on the side where you can see the seam of where the interfacing got folded over, because that's gonna be the thicker, and the stitch is gonna help hold that down. So you can get in a little bit closer. Don't zoom in, just get closer, because that zoom makes it low resolution. All right, so once I got that started, the edge is kind of hard because it's got, again, so many layers. And I'm just feeling on the bottom to make sure that I'm matching up the seam. To make sure that I'm matching up this seam, and I can feel where the seam is on the bottom and the top, so. And I don't top stitch the bottom because sometimes I'll get a little bit of overlap, and if you top stitch the bottom along the bottom edge first before doing this, then you get this weird bulge. So I am going to back stitch there just a little bit to make sure I've got it. All right, next step. We're going to go ahead and straighten out this bottom section so we can top stitch that. When you do this, you want to make sure, again, that you're getting all the wrinkles out in this area, because you don't want those wrinkles. They're kind of uncomfortable. So. And I usually go halfway and then straighten out the other half. You can pin it ahead of time, but I found that sometimes it just moves anyway, so. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and trim these threads so they don't get stuck in the channels that I'm gonna make. All right, and if you're a really OCD, super perfectionist person, you're gonna measure this. I'm not, so I just fold it over and eyeball it and fold it over again. And you just want to make sure that this is wide enough that you're going to be able to stick your elastic through. And the reason I do the channels is because I want people to be able to adjust the elastics. I know you can buy the adjustable elastic. Some people don't like the size of the elastic though, so I just do it this way, and that way they can replace the elastic with whatever they want to do. So once I've got that, this place is where you are going to want to back stitch, because this thing will come out if it's not well back stitched. It's getting stuck. There. All right. So that's one side. And now we're going to do the other side. All right, and that is basically the mask. Now I'm gonna also do a nose channel here to show you how to do that. So you can add a wire nose piece, but that's it. I do have a fancy tool to get the elastic through, and you can just stick it on there and it pulls it through super fast. For the nose channel, basically what you're gonna wanna get, if you can, is some single fold bias tape, and I do it about somewhere around an inch shorter. And then I'm going to take it and fold this down after I open it up. So, and then fold it over like so. And I do this so that it's easy to get the wire or whatever you're going to add in there in and out. The flat metal nose pieces don't work in this one because you've got it curved. I'm going to fold it in half so that I can find the center here. Okay. And then I'm going to pin this down. And I pin it just right up along the top edge so that my top stitch line is basically the same line that I'm doing as I stitch this on. All right, and then go ahead. Again, going over the center section is always a little tricky. Gotta guide it along. And definitely back stitch on these because you don't want that to start falling off. Because that's a pain because you have to stitch it back on then. All right, and then I've actually found that they have these green plastic twist ties that you can buy for outdoor gardening, and they actually work really well for this because they don't fall apart in the washing machine. I just twist them over, and I use the same tool. I'm out of them right now, or else I'd show you. But you can just order gardening twist ties on Amazon, and you can find them. So there you go. There's the mask. I still need to trim things, but that's it. Pretty straightforward. I'd say the trickiest part is being able to get that front seam line straight and making sure that it all works. So there you go. There it is.
I'm done.